welcome to the program. This is the Retirement Education Hour. We're so glad you're with us today. Megan Mozak back in the studio with Kirk Cassidy and Dr. Paul Metler. Kirk and Paul, they're financial instructors with the Retirement Education Foundation, and the foundation makes it their mission to help you get educated around all things retirement planning. That's what this show aims to do. Foundation also hosts courses, and these courses are like master's level classes on retirement planning. We're going to tell you how you can attend throughout the program today. We have a great show lined up for you as always, and we want to talk about fear and anxiety. And there is quite a bit of fear and anxiety as it relates to retirement. This is a huge change to go from working to your retirement years. And so we don't want to allow those two things to have a front seat in our retirement plan. We're going to talk to Kirk and Paul today about how to keep those at bay. But this is very real. And Kirk and Paul, it's real because we're humans, right?
We are. And I think it's more than just being humans. I think that, there has been billions of dollars spent on behavioral finance, researching behavioral, maybe not billions, hundreds of millions, probably billions, Paul. I'm guessing by now over the many decades of the financial service industry. They spend a lot of money to understand human behavior, how to drive people's actions. And there is, unfortunately, in the financial service industry, a lot of profits to be made, a lot of money to be made, creating environments to, what's the word I'm looking for, Paul? I think it's promote the fear and anxiety about retirement. Like, I could outlive my money. Healthcare late in my life is going to spend all my money. See, the premise is based upon the less money you spend, the more money the financial service industry makes. The less money you spend, the more you protect your principal, the less you spend in retirement, the less work they have to do to make sure that your money lasts as long as you do. You're doing the work. You're self-regulating, and it's driven by fear. The more you're fearful about inflation, the more you're fearful about elections, the more you're fearful about anything prevents you from retiring when you want to retire. If you don't retire, that means you're saving more, you're spending less, and the financial service industry wins by you spending less. So it's natural to have fear and anxiety, but I would argue they've done things to create it. I forgot the most important thing. It's the easiest way to sell insurance products, right? Selling products to overcome fear and anxiety of outliving your money just makes it easier to sell things as well. So Paul, I know that certainly there should be some fear and anxiety about going from your working years to retirement years and someone else paying you to you paying yourself and all the things associated with aging. But they aren't making it any easier. I would argue intentionally, the financial service industry intentionally promotes that fear and anxiety, leans into it. That's our opinion, at least, Paul.
Yes, it is. And I think it's important to differentiate for a moment. Like, as you just said, I think it's well said that, there's a healthy dose of some fear, right? It's normal to have concerns, right? It's normal to, you go to retire and you have your own concerns or worries. A healthy dose of that is good because it actually motivates you to do something. If you have no concerns, we often get lazy and complacent. So it's good to have concern. What's bad is when you have anxiety that immobilizes you. And we see this a lot. We see people get so overwhelmed with fear that they become immobilized and they don't make decisions. And that ultimately hurts you because by making no decisions is a decision. So what I love about this show is we're going to teach people and help people learn to filter the noise. What are things you should really worry about and be concerned about? And what are things that just are hyperbole, things just causing you problems you don't need?
I want to make sure people stick around for the show because we happen to have literally an expert, psychologist, fellowship trained in geriatric psychology, like Dr. Paul Metler is an expert in this space, right? And so I think he can give some great insight today. I'll try not to hog the entire show like I usually do. But anyone interested in going to our 8-hour education to help you reduce that fear and anxiety and how to choose the right teams to help you, go to retirementplanningedu.org. That's retirementplanningedu.org.
So, Kirk, you said something earlier. If I want you to hit on again. I think just to underline this point, you made some comment suggesting that there may be motivation or an incentive. I mean, there's a lot of fear out there in general in the world, right? I mean, I think a lot of people are sort of on edge, unrelated to retirement. But you made a comment about there's maybe an incentive for our industry to promote that. Can you speak to that a second one more time?
Yeah, so I'm going to start on the opposite end of where I ended to revisit one of those things. And one of those areas, remember, we're a national charity, right? So we're promoting education and our white papers and our webinars and our educational classes. That is the purpose of our show around the country now, podcasts, TV shows. It's a great charity. But what we know is safe money strategies is a red flag. The next 10 callers get this free analysis is a red flag of someone going to sell you something. And the easiest way to sell somebody something towards retirement or in retirement is through fear and anxiety. We know that is the number one motivator for people buying variable annuities and annuity products. And we're not here to say good or bad about annuities. We actually spend a lot of time educating around annuities in the class. Good, bad, ugly, all of it. How, when not to. I could tell you definitively on this radio show, your fear of a major market event should not trigger you to buy a product. Your plan, based upon what do you need to give what you want in retirement, should drive whether or not you buy products. Not we had a major market event, you're scared, this is going to provide you safe income, this is going to protect you, because you end up getting products that aren't the best for you, for your situation. You shouldn't buy anything, make any decision on any investment, when, if, how to retire, all of the above, until someone has built a specific 25, 30-year plan showing you what you need to give you what you want. When do you need this? How do you need this? Everything is driven by the plan. Not your opinion, not the advisor's opinion, not our opinion. The plan drives it. It's goal-based planning. What do I need to give me what I want? And if you want to understand more about what we're talking about, you need to attend one of our 8-hour classes that are held at major universities and colleges in your areas and streamed live from the colleges and universities. So wherever you're at in the country, you can participate. If you'd like to register, go to retirementplanningedu.org. That's retirementplanningedu.org. Thanks for listening to the Retirement Education Hour. Be sure to follow or subscribe when listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And now, back to the show.
I want to continue our conversation about fear and anxiety and how it relates to retirement. And there's no lack of that, especially if you've not done a plan, you're just starting to think about retirement, you might have that anxiety kind of building up. And I heard you say something, Kirk and Paul, you said, filter the noise as a first step. What do you mean by that?
Well, so there's a couple things. And I want to make sure we're not going to forget, we're going to come right back to filtering the noise. It's one of the goals and purposes specific to this segment of the Retirement Education Foundation, the charity, right? The charity teaches financial literacy for high school students. We don't spend a lot of time on our radio show talking about that because it's a different area of the charity. This area of the charity, it's about helping people within 10 years of retirement through retirement. We know our listeners and most people attending our courses, and this will benefit everyone, but we know the majority of the people listening and participating have, 500 to $1 million saved for retirement, all the way up to about 20 million. That's usually the people listening to the show, attending our courses. And you said something, and I appreciate you mentioning how much we've already raised for Alzheimer's. We started in September. We partnered with Alzheimer's. We partnered with them, and we committed to raise money through the charity it was about September through the end of the year. We're already at $50,000. I'm hoping we get to $100,000. But that just shows you the power and the quantity of people we have impacted through the charity, educating, preparing them for retirement, and the appreciation is shown back to the charity by supporting other charities we partner with, which is Incredible. I mean, it blows me away. I never expected we'd get this much support, but it's logical. It will impact a lot of us, and especially the people that have been through our class. I think it's the right demographic of people that can connect with that cause and want to make a difference. So I wanted to mention that, and I know I've already shrunk some time and promised not to hog all the time this show, and make sure we let the doctor actually speak about his expertise, which is fear and anxiety in psychology. But I will say that I feel like probably one of the greater values that the charity provides through the almost master level courses and the white papers and the webinars and everything, and the radio shows in the podcast is, and it's kind of the theme of the class, is we're trying to provide you the tools to filter what is real good content information that can help you in retirement versus what we call the noise. Filter the noise, the BS, people trying to sell you things, often through fear and anxiety, convincing you to spend less money than you really can spend in retirement. That's a big theme of our class. We find most people attending our courses underspend what they could otherwise spend, right? So, Paul, I'd like to give you the floor. This is a big area, filtering the noise. What's good, healthy information for retirement versus what's bad, and how do you find that? And I think the biggest issue, Paul, is around people's fear of outliving their money.
Yeah, I mean, you hear it all the time, right? I mean, I think it's probably not a surprise to our listeners that, that's probably the number one fear you hear about through social media and the internet, right? Everybody talks about, I'm going to run out of money. And obviously, there's a huge segment of our population that may be true, right? That it is true. But the problem is that if you don't know you're part of that population and you hear it, everyone sort of assumes it's going to be you. And I think because there's so much angst and fear out there in general, I think it just trickles down into this. And I think the problem with fear is, again, the challenge with fear and anxiety is oftentimes when people experience it, right, they tend to, the best way to deal with it is avoidance, right? We all hate to feel anxious. We all hate to be afraid. And the best way to handle it is to avoid, which means there are people who don't come to our class, Kirk, because they don't want to face it. They don't want to think about it. They're overwhelmed, right? And that's when it becomes really problematic. The goal of the show, the goal of our class is not to overwhelm you. It's to teach you what you need to be paying attention to and what not to, so that you have enough concern that you do something, but you don't get overwhelmed and do nothing. Shutting down is never a good solution, even though it feels good. And what I love about our classes is that I think it helps motivate people to do something. It doesn't shut people down. And there's so much. Man, you just turn on the TV every single day, Kirk, and there are so much messages out there that make you afraid of everything. And as a result, I think a lot of people put their head in the sand, and you can't do that when it comes to retirement planning.
And Paul, it perfectly stated, and I want to make sure we come back to this topic to give some of the data and statistics about outliving your money, because the reality is what the industry does is they take the average baby boomer and then they spread the message based upon the average baby boomer and create these rules. And that's one of the really fine points of the class is first to distinguish who is an average baby boomer and who isn't. The average baby boomer is going to retire with $200,000 saved. So if you have $1 million plus, you're not going to outlive your money because your fear and anxiety will prevent you from outliving your money. So come back to the next segment. We'll revisit this and then attend one of our 8-hour courses so that we can help you to spend more, retire sooner, pay less taxes, find the right teams to help you, and have less anxiety and fear as you age, which is natural, right? So if you'd like to attend one of our 8-hour courses, go to retirementplanningedu.org. That's retirementplanningedu.org. Listening from outside Michigan or Missouri? We stream courses live from the university so you can attend anywhere in the country. Go to retirementplanningedu.org. That's retirementplanningedu.org to sign up. And now back to the show.
Talking about fear and anxiety today as it relates to your retirement. I want to talk about that specific fear that we mentioned, which is running out of money, running out of income. Boy, that is a scary proposition, isn't it, Kirk and Paul?
It is. And I think, look, you people who have been listening to our podcasts and our radio shows for a while and haven't attended one of our 8-hour courses, because there's no excuse. You can stream it from wherever you are in the country. You can stream the class live when we are in whatever universities we're teaching, and we're teaching every month at different universities and colleges around Michigan and Missouri and many more states to come over the next several years. So there is no excuse. And so what we're trying to convince you is that you listeners, many of you are not the average baby boomer, right? All these rules, the concept you need to protect your principal, the 4% rule, you back down your spending during short-term market events or even major market events. I change my spending patterns. I work longer, like Susie Orman's telling everyone to do right now. Right? This is they're talking to a baby boomer that has $200,000 saved for retirement. They're not talking to the people that have $700, $1 million to $20 million saved for retirement. They're just not. And so the challenge is you don't know they're not talking to you. And in fact, what they've learned is that they want you to assume that you should be afraid of outliving your money. Because again, remember, that fear motivates you to spend less, work longer, right? And then change your spending patterns every time we have a major market event. And those short-term major market events are going to happen 3 to 6 times throughout your retirement. So they're hoping every time it happens, you spend less. And the reason why is the less you spend of your own money, the longer you work and more you save of your own money, the more the financial service industry makes. There is no incentive for them to do comprehensive planning. There's no incentive for you to teach you to be able to take more than 4%. And the truth is, if you've got $1 million or more, you should be able to spend 6, 7, 8, 9% withdrawal rates. Many of you already should be retired. You just don't have the right teams. You don't have the right information. And that's what the class is going to teach you, how to find the right teams, what the rules should be. How are you able to take larger withdrawal rates? And it's not what you invest in. People, it's not what you invest in. It's all about how and when you take income from which accounts at what age, managing. There's these risks out there called sequence of returns risks. It's all about that. But you can spend more. Paul, I'm going to let you go, but I'm going to leave you with this last statistic. The statistic is 2 decades into retirement. So about the time you die, the majority of you will have, this is a government statistic, 80% of the wealth that you retired with. In other words, if you retired with $1 million, you will still have $800,000 2 decades into retirement in your 80s or about when you're passing away. So when you die, you're going to have about 80% of your wealth still. I'm guessing most of the people listening would like to have a controlled spend down of their principal. Just don't let me outlive my money. And that can be accomplished at 6, 7, 8% withdrawal rates with the right information and finding the right teams.
Kirk, I think it's fair to say that most people, especially, early on in retirement, 60s, 50s, 60s, 70s, that's when they really want to enjoy their retirement, right? Isn't that what you agree? That's what we tend to see, right?
100%.
So
you're healthy.
Right, because you're healthy. And I think most people out there listening, most of you work 30, 40 years of your life, and you actually want to do some things you've never been able to do. And it's incredibly frustrating when you go to retire and every time you do something, you're worrying about, oh my God, can I afford it? Listen, retirement is anxiety-provoking. Put aside the financial aspects of it, right? There's a lot of fear just around stopping working for everybody, right? You've been working your whole life. You add on that fear and anxiety about money, and people they oftentimes don't end up enjoying those years. So, who does not want to maximize their spending, especially in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, without concern? Who does not want that? Everybody wants that. The problem is nobody is showing.
The financial service industry doesn't want that.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Consumers. Every consumer, all of you listening want that, and most of you, I would bet, don't have any idea how to get that. That's what this class is going to teach you. It's going to teach you how to maximize your spending so you can spend everything you can afford and want to do and not run out of money. And I think that's a concept people just aren't used to.
And I don't want to confuse people. Well, I think you nailed that, by the way. I don't want to confuse people because we're talking about spending right now because that's the segment. Whether it's a legacy you want. Look, growth, maximizing income and growth can be accomplished almost the same way. It is driving real return, not average rates of returns. It's about managing sequence of returns risk, having an income plan. So it's not the message we're trying to share is don't let the fear and anxiety beat you. And the only way you're going to not let it beat you is you got to find the right teams. And in our class, we'll teach you how to do background checks. How do they get paid? What does a real plan look like? What levers should it have? What should be included? Make a $29 donation to charity, attend one of our 8-hour courses, and it will change your retirement. I'll guarantee it. I will guarantee it. So if you'd like to register, go to retirementplanningedu.org. That's retirementplanningedu.org.
Classes are forming now. Go to retirementplanningedu.org to register. Again, that's retirementplanningedu.org. Use the promo code PODCAST to receive 50% off your tuition. And now, back to the show.
And I want to get back to our program today as we're talking about fear and anxiety. You know, part of fear, sometimes I notice it's a mechanism to cope with it. You freeze. You do nothing to cope. That's not a great plan either for retirement, is it?
Well, Megan, I think what happens, and Paul can speak to this greater than I can given his background. He's a psychologist, right? And I really want Paul to talk about, that the relationship, cognitive change, and aging as we go through, because I think it contributes to it. But what what we believe is happening is there's this thing called Google that has changed how we research and make decisions forever, right? Whether it's Google or some internet-based information resource out there to give you information. The problem in our business, the financial service industry, information can be very conflicting. And when someone has a strong fear or anxiety or a bias, they tend to gravitate to the information that is most consistent with whatever their biases are. And then you get in this loop algorithm where they just feed you that information. So if you are naturally anxious, it's going to feed you things that make you anxious. If you think Social Security is going to go away, they'll feed you that. If you think the market's going to crash, you're a bear, they're going to feed you that. And so that is, I think, one of the more valuable parts of the class is to help put you in categories so you know where you're at. So what information should I be targeting and focusing on based upon the amount of wealth I have and the lifestyle that I can afford to live, right? And so I think that's what we meant by filtering the noise at the beginning. That's what the course, the charity does to help you understand what category of information you should focus on, what's a sales pitch and what's not. And so once you are confident in the information you're consuming is accurate, then you won't freeze and do nothing as much. It's very much a behavioral thing, right, Paul? I mean, I'm playing psychologist right now. You're the literal psychologist. I think I just have some experience, given my age and the amount of people we've taught, over 10,000 people we've been able, and hundreds of thousands of people listening to our podcast. I can see the response and how people respond to different information, and I can see how often they just freeze and they shut down.
Actually, to be honest, for a moment there, I thought you were a psychologist. You actually sounded like a psychologist there.
But I did stay at a Holiday Inn Express.
No, I loved it. I loved it because, you were talking about how some people are sort of naturally biased towards fear and anxiety. There's actually, a lot of people who are listening right now who maybe naturally are biased towards anxiety. And then you add on to this, I think, you add retirement, which is a huge transition. We all understand transitions are hard. It doesn't matter what transition. All transitions create anxiety for everybody. So and then you have people who have certain personalities that are biased towards anxiety. You add all that up. And then you have, like you say, you have Google and all of this information, all this noise out there that is creating fear. The problem is we are all hardwired when we feel or face anxiety. We're hardwired to do one of two things, right, Kirk? We're hardwired to either fight or flight. That's how we protected ourselves against the dinosaurs, and that's how we do it today. We are hardwired. The problem is people have sometimes difficult time differentiating what's a real threat versus not a real threat. Whoa. And the problem is because we're all, so many people are biased towards this, they misperceive something that's not really a real threat, but they perceive it as a real threat. And oftentimes we're not going to fight, so the only other response is we're going to run. It's a natural response to facing fear. The key is you have to be able to differentiate real fear from imaginary fear. And what I love about the class is we talk about what are the things you should really be worried about and run from, right, Kirk? And what are the things you don't need to worry about? It's either because your personality or because the noise you're listening to, and you got to face it. And if you face it, we see this all the time in the class. When people actually don't run away and they face their fear, they end up having a much better retirement, a much better life. And that's the goal of the class.
Paul, there's a correlation between your relationship with money, right? Whether you're serving money or you let money serve you. We talked about that in the class. But you said a couple of things that I just want to highlight that was really well said. So you're confused and you get anxious because the advice that you receive is confusing and sometimes intentionally confusing. If someone is always selling something, we have someone that goes on TV, it says, I'd rather die than go to hell than own an annuity. And then the third largest division of their company is the annuity division, right? So there is all this, they're intentionally creating fear because your response is going to be, you're either going to run from it and do nothing, or if they create enough fear and they're good enough salespeople, you'll buy. And that's what they want, to trigger that buy. All I got to do is create this to get you to buy. And so the goal of the class is to get you to stop buying things that are going to make you feel better and educate yourself to know what a real plan should look like so you can find people to build plans. And then the plan drives the decisions. It's no longer your emotions. It's no longer your fear. It's not your advisor's fear. It's not anyone's emotions or feelings. It's a math problem. And the plan dictates what you own, when you spend it, how much you can spend, when to take Social Security, should you take a pension, should you take a lump sum. It gives you everything. And so attend one of these 8-hour courses or even just go check out some of our webinars and then get to a course. It'll change your retirement. Go to retirementplanningedu.org. To find our latest white papers and webinars, go to retirementplanningedu.org. That's retirementplanningedu.org. And remember to subscribe or follow wherever you listen to your podcasts. And now back to the show.
Today on the show, we've focused on fear and anxiety, how to combat that and become more confident for your retirement future. There is this, I think, there's a tendency, I suppose, when we see the market drop, people want to get out. They want to wait, right? They want to hold on to that cash until they see the market go back up. What do you think of that strategy, Kirk and Paul?
So this is fear and anxiety, right? And so I want to be careful, right? Because I know, it's at some point, people who are listening to us as a charity, we're not selling anything. If you come to the class, you're going to recognize we're not selling anything because we're pretty direct and we challenge people's biases and theories that we know are wrong. We have taught tens of thousands of people, and in our private practices, like we operate like a family office, we take care of thousands of people and billions of dollars. Okay, so and this is all we have ever done is taken care of people within 10 years of retirement through retirement. That is it for a long time now. That is all we've done. Now we're not talking about private practice, and we won't. We have our charity out there, and the information we send is specifically for, and we have different people, CPAs, attorneys, psychologists. So we were trying to be a trusted source. So to hear us right now, you got to hear us as a trusted source, because I know the joke is, oh, of course, people in the financial service industry tells us when the markets go down, you got to ride the roller coaster ride. And we're telling you right now, we're telling you that, okay? We're going to tell you, and I'm going to give you some crazy statistics. The response shouldn't be and can't be when the market goes down that you get out of the market. You'll go to cash and wait for the market to come back. That is bad and wrong for so many reasons. Now, what that is a reaction. That's a fight or flight reaction to fear and anxiety. And the antidote to that is not to escape. That flight response is not the antidote. The antidote to this is to have a comprehensive plan, especially as you're approaching retirement or retirement, knowing when you are going to spend those dollars. So those dollars that are going to be most impacted by a major market event can't be dollars that you are spending in the first 10 years of retirement. And then the years 5 through 10, those will have a little less impact by a major market event. And then you have dollars in 0 to 5 years that you're going to spend that has very little to no risk with pivot accounts. This is what we teach in the class, because the mistake of that flight fear, anxiety reaction to bad markets, meaning going into cash or not spending, stopping spending or reducing your spending, is catastrophic to your investments, your performance, your lifestyle. That cannot be the answer. There is an antidote to avoid that. None of you have it. The industry wants you to have that fear. They want that fear. You need to learn the type of planning you got to have to give you the antidote. You got to understand the different levers. You got to understand sequence of returns risk. Because here's the deal. In 2008, 65% of retirees panicked. They panicked. They went to cash. In COVID, 35% of baby boomers who were retired went to cash. They panicked. You know when the best days in the market are? Right after the worst days in the market. You can't get out because that's when you recover. Right after the worst days in the market are the best days. Paul, the numbers are overwhelming. You missed 30 of the best days over the last 20 years, and I think the numbers still you have a negative return. It's crazy. No one can time the market. No one can stock pick. That is a fallacy. No one in our industry, no one out there can do this. The reflex can't be escape when the market is crashing or not spend when the market is crashing. Do you agree, Paul? I mean, this is
100%. I think you're saying, I think underlying what you're saying is that when you get out of, there are two decisions you have to make when you get out of the market. The first one's really easy. It's really easy to run, right? It's easy to go to cash. That takes very little, that's easy. It's really hard to figure out when to go back in. Most people never get it right. And hear us, we are not minimizing the power of this tendency, this reflex. I mean, it is the reason why human beings have survived for so long. This desire to fight and flight is so ingrained in us. It's really powerful. I think the perfect antidote, Kirk, I think really at the end of the day, the best antidote is just knowledge, right? I think the best way to help people, that's why some people go to therapy when they're anxious, right? The best way to cure or deal with anxiety and not run from it is to get information and have knowledge. Because I think when you have knowledge, you have then some power to fight that desire to run away. And that's why, again, that's the underlying purpose of the course. It's not to lecture, right? It's not to make you afraid. It's to give you information so then you have the ability to fight this tendency to run away.
I agree, Paul. I mean, you said something, you triggered something. I was actually literally writing it down. I didn't know if I was going to get more time because I'm hogging again the time. But the power of the course isn't to tell you what to do. The power of the course is to tell you why people tell you what they are telling you. So that and to show you what it should look like. We do want to show you what a real retirement plan should look like. It should include the levers, but more importantly, we want to teach you the whys. The whys of why that plan should look like that. But more importantly, the whys people are telling you to do other things. When you have that knowledge of the whys people say things to get you to behave and react certain ways, it helps you to avoid that reflex or making purchases or buying products or trying to escape or changing advisors every 3 or 5 years, right? Because someone else tells you a better story. That's the purpose of the class. So attend one of our 8-hour classes. If you'd like to register, we ask for a $29 donation that goes to charity. Go to retirementplanning.edu.org. Remember, we are streaming these classes live as we are teaching them at the university. So we know we have listeners all over the country. No excuse not to attend. Go to retirementplanning.edu.org. Thanks for listening to the Retirement Education Hour. Be sure to follow or subscribe when listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And now back to the show.
We've been talking about fear and anxiety as it relates to your retirement and ways to combat that and take some action, some proactive measures. And Kirk and Paul, you say this always comes back to one thing, and that's planning, right?
So, Megan, the answer is, and again, I think we use the terminology, the antidote to fear, anxiety, and really freedom. Freedom to spend more, retire sooner, pay less taxes through good planning. And really, as you age and cognitively things slowly decline, things get more scary. We like to say, we say this in the class a lot, is that as we age, older people aren't cheap. And that's a stereotype sometimes used for older people, at least for, parents and grandparents of ours. And then we will be them, by the way, all of us. But old people aren't cheap. They get scared. The older we get, the more scared we get because cognitively things change and it's more confusing and things are just changing and there's all these things going on. And the solution to this, and we've spent a lot of time today talking about education, but it really comes down to planning, right? Everything should be driven off of a plan. Now, the problem for many of our listeners around the country listening to our show is many of you think you have a plan. And I'm here to tell you that it's like 2% of our population has a comprehensive individualized retirement plan. And when you come to the class, or if you go to the website and you watch the webinar, we have a 30, 40-minute webinar specifically talking about what does a retirement plan look like, a sample plan. When you go look at that, you're going to see you don't have that plan. And that plan is the key to managing fear and anxiety. It's the key that's going to allow you to spend 6, 7, 8% withdrawal rates. Not worrying about performance. Set of performance aside. The example we use, the performance is like a little over 3% in their investments. And you can still take 6, 7, 8, 9% withdrawal rates without outliving your money. It's just about managing in retirement sequence of returns risk, managing taxes, having pivot accounts, and then the plan drives all decisions. See, if you have a plan that tells you exactly where you're taking your income from all the different accounts you have, and you should have a lot of them. You should have an IRA, a non-qualified account, which is a taxable account. Some of you will have Roth accounts. You'll have pensions. You'll have Social Securities. You'll have decisions to make along all of these. When you take those dollars, are driven from which of those registrations and which investment should be driven based on market conditions. See, instead of market timing your investments, you're market timing your income. And to do that, you have to have a very comprehensive plan that gives you the ability to pivot where you're going to take your income from. And if you do this properly, there won't be panic and fear. There'll be risk mitigation, hundreds of iterations, stress testing, running mitigations, not Monte Carlo simulations, not probability of success. It's all mitigation, long-term care. One spouse, if you're married, dying early. The other spouse dying early, dying at 75, dying at 80, the tax implications, the Medicare implications, the healthcare implications. And then investments. Your IRA literally should have like 3-4 different investment accounts, depending on market conditions, so you can take money from those different investment accounts depending on market conditions. What we're telling you is this class, we are teaching something most of you have never seen and never heard before. It's unlikely many of you are going to be able to do it. So then we're going to teach you, how do you choose a team, the right advisors, the right CPAs, the right attorneys. How do you do background checks? How do they get paid? What specific questions should you be asking? And you'll see the class. You'll know what a plan looks like. You know the levers that should be involved. And now you'll be informed to go out and find your teams to help you as you age so you can have freedom and not fear and anxiety. Paul, sorry.
Yeah, no. I think, I want to just highlight something you said. That's, I think, the key. At the end of the day, planning is about risk mitigation. And this is true in any aspect of your life. If you could come up with a plan that identifies all the future potential risks and you have a solution for them today in anticipation that they may happen tomorrow, guess what? You're going to really enjoy your future. You're going to relax and not worry. If you have not addressed future risks, in the back of your mind, you're always going to wonder what's going to happen if that risk comes true. So really, good planning addresses all that risks, whether it's taxes, whether it's healthcare, whether it's income, whether it's one of you dying first, whether it's legacy. We can go on and on, on and on and on. A true plan is about risk mitigation, right, Kirk? It's about anticipating all the future risks having a plan today in case those happen. And when you do that, you will enjoy and feel free like you can't understand today.
Paul, that was awesome. And you have two options. By the way, risk mitigation options in retirement, you have two options. It's really two options. You got to find someone in a team and understand educate yourself on a comprehensive, individualized retirement plan for you, because all of us are different. Or B, which the financial service industry wants you to take this path, is to take the 4% rule. And then they can run their little Monte Carlo. They can have eMoney, Right Capital, Money Guide Pro, all the different softwares that give you a probability of success, a 4% rule, and show you how likely you are to outlive your money. Those are your two choices. And I'm telling you, you can have 5, 6, 7, 8% withdrawal rates without fear, without changing your lifestyle. Go to our website, learn information, make a $29 donation to charity, and attend one of our 8-hour courses. If you'd like to register, go to retirementplanningedu.org. That's retirementplanningedu.org.
Retirement Education Foundation is a fiscally sponsored program of United Charitable, a registered 501c3 public charity. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Any insurance discussed in this show is backed by the financial strength and claims-paying abilities of the issuing carrier. This radio show is intended for informational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as the sole basis for financial decisions, nor should it be construed as advice designed to meet the particular needs of an individual's situation. Retirement Education Foundation is not permitted to offer, and no statement made during this show shall constitute tax or legal advice. Our firm is not affiliated with or endorsed by the U.S. government or any governmental agency. The information and opinions contained herein provided by third parties have been obtained from sources believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed by Retirement Education Foundation. This radio show is paid for by the Retirement Education Foundation.